and welcome back to my channel. It's Wednesday, which means another interview from a publishing professional. Today we have an editorial assistant that works at LION HUDSON, which is specifically a Christian publisher.
I'm an editorial assistant for a Christian publishing house. The motto I would have to pick would be Experiencia Docet, which is the motto of my alma mater, University of Derby, where I did my MA in publishing. And I think it's the best motto for publishing professionals because you never know what you're going to encounter in your daily job. Meaning you learn something in books in uni, and then you come and start working in a company, and the expectations are wildly different from your expectations of the job. So you just have to be prepared for everything, basically. I'm an editorial assistant for a Christian publishing house. We have imprints across all genres, so we do academic, children's, fiction and non-fiction. I partake in daily meetings. I think it would be better to say weekly. I just do administrative tasks that would be required of an editorial assistant, and some of my tasks are more editorial heavy, some of the others are more admin heavy. It varies day to day, you know, it's always something new that you have to adapt to and learn. And I think that's part of the fun of the job, because you always learn, you never stagnate. Right, I did a BA in comparative literature with a minor in French at the University of Bucharest, which is where I'm from. And while I was there, I was the editor-in-chief of a student online magazine, which was amazing because we did a number of campaigns. We focused on a number of local artists. We just interviewed people because it was an opinion magazine. It was focused on the millennial opinion, so I don't feel like the millennial generation was pretty well expressed in media. So that's why we started this project. I joined it as an author and I made my way up to being the editor-in-chief, and I passed by HR and editorial on my way up. And for the moment the project is on hiatus because most of the team has emigrated. We did publish 2 annuals, and also we held a conference with influencers, but literary influencers, so not from Instagram, not from YouTube. Because at the time when I was in uni, this wasn't such a big thing. When I started, I was focusing on continuous professional development, which meant I joined the SYP, the CIEP. I participated in activities and events organized by the Literary Consultancy and Book Machine. Yeah, I just took a bunch of courses. I tried reading editors' blogs and articles on editorial and on specialisms, because you do have to have one more often than not. So this was of great help for me in the long run. I think the favorite bit that I have to do at work is proofreading, because I do have to do quite a lot of proofreading on various tasks, and it's so immersive and relaxing. It's like the activities that you do, like coloring books for adults. It's just that I do it and I have to focus on it because it's minutiae work and you have to have a lot of attention to detail. But also it helps me relax because every other tasks take the back seat, and then I just focus on the proofreading and that's it, and it's amazing. Okay, there are a lot of challenging parts to my job. I was just thinking that if you want the holistic perspective of it, if you were to talk about the death of the author, so once a book goes to press or it goes to the publishing house, the author does not have as much input, you'd say, or not as much as he would have when he has the manuscript in his possession. And also that input disappears altogether when the book goes to press and the reader has access to the text. I think in some way we could also talk about the death of the editor, because after you send a book to press, no matter how many amendments you did or how many changes or how many corrections you inputted, you never know if the reader is the right one for your corrections or your corrections are the right one for the reader. Yeah, I think that's the most challenging part of the job, just figuring out what the best changes are for the book. I do participate in department meetings, which vary depending on our workload and our tasks. And also I have the general meetings, so that's the meetings where everyone participates. There are some individual meetings that I can set up, so I have some flexibility regarding my tasks. If there's something that I think someone would need to help me with, or I need to consult someone from another department, I'm able to request some meetings to be set up. I think the person that I contact the most is my manager, my direct manager, because I like keeping in contact, and there's always, it's not necessarily that I contact, it's just that we keep a lot in contact, because there are always updates that are incoming and changes that are being done to various tasks, and I have to always refer and get back to some tasks that I used to do and send an update or inform of the change if needed. And I think it's just best to keep in touch with your manager, because this way everyone's aware of what's going on, and this way you can communicate better and there are no surprises down the road like this changed and nobody informed me of it. Well, I did mention a couple: attention to detail, patience for minutiae tasks. I think another one would be social skills, because you do have to liaise with all the other departments and with external people. So if you were to contact an author or someone else, you would have to be quite social and be able to communicate well. I think that's one of the big ones. Perhaps adaptability, because you have to be able to prioritize the tasks that come your way. And that's an ever-changing process, so you just have to be prepared for the unknown and be able to adapt for streamlining your work in the end, basically. That's been very productive for me. I feel like I got a lot more done. You know that in the office there are always interruptions, especially if you have an open space office or if you have like an open door policy. You would have people coming and going, especially in the entry-level roles. So I really love working from home from this perspective. On the other hand, I do miss the hustle and bustle of the office and communicating with my colleagues and always like being able to exchange opinions and getting feedback instantly on the stuff that I work on. This being a Christian publishing house, we do work with quite a lot of editions of the Bible, and you always have to pay attention to which translation was used, or if a translation was used, because sometimes you would just cite it in original. And you have to check that, because there are various options for various denominations, and that's something that you really have to pay attention to, especially in editorial. So one of our contemporary fiction titles, The Death of Mango Blackwell by Lauren Brandenburg, has gotten the ACFW 2020 award for Best Contemporary Fiction, and I think that's amazing, because that's actually part of a series, and it's very hard for a title that's part of a series to get an independent prize. So I think that was something that took it out of the ordinary and gave it that special something, as a series altogether, because only one of the titles was able to get the prize instead of the series, which would usually happen with the book series. I had to communicate with one of our French publishers and collaborators, and while I was doing it on the phone, I figured that I can actually speak French and it would be much easier to communicate in French, which subsequently is the matter we were to discuss, because they were much happier to discuss in their native language, and I think that actually helped that particular task with its resolution, and it felt good. Well, the most common path would be becoming an editor, becoming a commissioning editor. There are a couple more stages between editorial assistant and a commissioning editor, but that would be goal for later in your career if you desire it. Something that I learned about the publishing industry, both at my master's and while working on it. I think we are the best at keeping in touch with each other and knowing what everyone else is doing, because we have so many media outlets and so many fairs and so many ways to connect, especially now with the pandemic. I'm thinking of channels or hubs such as the Book Machine or the SYP. You have the book fairs, and of course there's Twitter. It's so easy to just be connected to everyone and know what everyone's doing, and be aware of what's happening in the industry, what trends are happening, especially in fiction. It's a really nice way of just being aware that the work you're doing in your own cubicle or little desk isn't going to waste, and everyone else is doing the same, and then in the end there's this huge conglomerate of books and stories being published and passed to and fro. It's really nice. There's this saying that good perfumers have this nose, so they've trained their nose to become the best in their craft. I feel like there's a similar muscle for commissioning editors, especially for fiction and literary fiction. And there are some working out routines for this muscle that I haven't yet mastered. And there are still some that I have to learn. This is something that I would really like to expand on and learn more about, because I find it very interesting to figure out how you design your list, which are the priorities, which aren't, how you decide which are the stories worth telling, and the process which gets them there. Okay, well, I'm thinking back to when I was starting, so the best advice would be keep applying, hone your editing skills, be flexible in what you might undertake, because you might end up where you never expected to be, and you might actually enjoy it. You never know. Before working here, I went and did a couple of temp roles, which I wasn't expected to do at all, and the subjects I was working on had nothing to do with trade publishing or literary fiction in any way. It's really interesting to just figure out your way there and find your way. It's not the destination, it's the journey, they used to say. Alright, for the one book that everyone should read, I decided to go with an underdog, because I know that YA is very popular and I know that fantasy series are very popular, but I still feel like we're reading books that can be found in our own backyard. So for this one, I decided to suggest the Night Watch series by Sergei Lukyanenko. He is a Russian author, and this series actually was made into a movie and translated in a number of languages, both in the US and the UK and other languages as well. It's amazing. It has vampires, it has magic, it has everything you want in it, and also it has humanity and an underdog trying to find their way and exploring this whole universe and the fight between good and evil. It's your basic YA fantasy story, but it's so interesting, and it focuses on the European space in a way that it's not usually very popular or in the media, because normally when you have a book that's set in Europe, it's usually set in Germany or in France or in sometimes in Russia, but in World War Russia or Communist Russia, this is just set in modernity, in our times, and you can recognize the things that you read there, and it's amazing. I would definitely recommend this lecture to someone. It's incredible. I love it so much. It's a long series, it has like 6 volumes, but it's amazing.
So I hope you found that interview with Laura helpful. Do let me know what you found out or what you learnt down below. Thank you.